A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, with the silvering car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Evening everybody, welcome to the final round of the Automobilista Australia Supercars Championship for 2020. Originally slated to be the Bend, we find ourselves in the Middle East at a track that Supercars have run at in years gone by, a long time ago. Not for the Desert 400 as it was back in those days, but for the Desert 200, a 200 kilometre final race for the season, and we are crowning a Supercars champion tonight. The outgoing champion, Brenton Foley, not in a position to hold on to his title that he won last year. He will relinquish the number one to either Kurt Stenberg, the current championship leader, or he will relinquish it to Will Devonish in the number 15 for CRE Race Engineering. The mathematics say that Stenberg is the man that is in the best position, being 192 points ahead. But the mathematics say anything is still possible. And with 200 Ks ahead and a difficult track in some parts to learn and adapt to, it certainly is going to be a nice fight to the very end in 53 laps from now. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining in for all of this year if you've tuned in and watched these over the course of the season. My name is Steve DeVries. I'm flying solo at the moment, just waiting for Hans Brunswick to arrive. Hopefully he's not too far away. His work duties just keeping him at bay for a little bit, but for the moment this is a little bit of a solo show. But for those of you that have not seen this particular circuit before, we're going to do things a little bit differently tonight, rather than do the round recap like we normally do at this particular point in proceedings. We'll have a look at this in real life it's 3.6 and a bit kilometres. The game tonight's 3.8. But what we did was hand the reins over in our community hot lap to Scott Nolan for an insight as to what it takes to navigate this tricky Bahrain circuit.
Good evening and welcome aboard the number 18 Synergy Sim Racing Smith & Sons Commodore. I'm going to take you for a ride around the Sakir International Circuit. Coming out of the last corner now, getting up to fifth gear, down this massive front straight as a part of this 3.6k circuit. Sizing up just before the 150 board, hard on the brakes. Back to first gear for turn one. Really got to be easy on the power. Short shift to second, third. Back to first gear for turn four. Out of there. This is turn 5 here, over that little jump as you head back onto the paddock straight, joining the main circuit. Holding fifth gear here for turn 6, hard on the rev limiter. Back to second. And this is where the tyres are really going to hurt. Short shift to third. All through 6. Now we're into 7. Really got to watch the rear. Hard on the brakes on the second gear for turn 8. Back up through the gears, really big bump on the braking zone into the final 2 turns here. Easy to lock a front right. The final corner, 9 and 10. Pull the gears onto the main straight, and that is a lap of the Sakir International Circuit for the final round of the Automobilista Australia Supercars Championship. Good luck to everyone out there tonight. Cheers.
Good on you, Scotty. Thanks for doing the hot lap for us this round, and for everybody that did a hot lap this year. It is the paddock circuit layout for the Bahrain International Circuit, not the GP layout as we've seen in years gone by and recently, of course, with Formula One. This circuit is only 10 turns. In the race tonight, 3.8 Ks. In real life, it's a touch shorter than that, but just to make sure we get to the right kilometre distance, we're going off of what the track says it is, and that is a race distance of just over 200 Ks and a lap count of 53. Of course, we have no track records to go off for this one here. The opening couple of corners are the same as the GP layout, then it takes a hard right turn, goes on to the back straight behind the pit complex, and then up and around the last few parts of the Grand Prix layout as we know it today. As we said, the first time that this circuit came into use for supercars was all the way back in 2006, which was the Desert 400, an event won by Jason Bright for Ford Performance Racing, Mark Winterbottom in 2007, Jamie Whincup for 888 in 2008, which was in a Ford BF Falcon. So the opening 3 times that we were here in real life for supercars, it was a Ford that took the honours, and in the very last event back in 2010, it was Jamie Whincup who took the honours in a VE Commodore. What I would like to say is a big thank you to everybody that did a hot lap this year in the community hot lap segment for supercars. It was a bit of community involvement that we wanted to get people involved and help everybody to have a bit more of an input into how things go. And across the 14 rounds of this season, there was 13 drivers that put their hand up and did a hot lap. So for Adelaide, big thanks to Will Devonish, Mitch Hathaway, who did it back at Albert Park, Steve Burko for Simmons Plains, Pukekohe was done by Scott Stancliffe, Barbagallo was the Perth boy himself in Kurt Stenberg, Calder Park was Phil Boat, who sadly dropped out of the series about halfway through, was replaced by Brennan Ross. Townsville, Rhodey with that fantastic lap at Townsville. Hidden Valley, we went all the way up north up there, and I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head who actually did that one. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Sydney Motorsport Park ended up being done by Luke Rosella. Phillip Island was myself. Service Paradise was Termo, with a little bit of help from myself. Sandown, Will Devonish backed up for Sandown, and Scott Nolan for tonight. So if I've forgotten anybody, I forgot obviously who did the one for Hidden Valley. I think actually it may have been Hamilton, sorry, was Hans Brunswick was the other one that we didn't come into play. But no, big thanks to all the guys for putting in the effort and the time and allowing me to get a little bit creative with the hot laps this year. Just getting set for a qualifying session to get underway. Looks like we are just about ready to get going, and a few cars already starting to take to the track, and we'll head on over now and pick up the live pictures. There we are, we've got some cars already set up in the garage. It is a 10-minute quali session, just looking at how things are going. Looks like Lime Mitch is heading a nice little train of cars down the pit lane. Is he the first man to the end of the pit lane? The answer is yes. So there he is, ready to get going. 18 cars out there at the minute. Who else is sitting in the lane? We're looking for Cam Rutledge is the next man in behind him. And then championship leader, Kurt Stenberg there as well. There's the green light. And we are underway for qualifying for the Desert 200. Nice little gaggle of cars going out to start with. You've got Lime Mitch's there, Cam Rutledge, Kurt Stenberg. Termo still running his livery from the retro round a couple of weeks ago. The Kelly Racing inspired one, which we believe doesn't resemble one Kelly car in particular. We believe it's a couple of different pieces from different Kelly cars over the years. And who else we got out there? You can see Scott Nolan, who just did our hot laps there. He's being chased by Nathan Higginson. And so far, the only drivers yet to take to the track, Lewis Wedding and Scott Stancliffe. Looks like Rhodey and RSM Latino have just gone out. And there is, we see Scotty Stancliffe sitting there. And there's Latino and Rhodey in the pit lane. So they're on the move. Blackshaw's cars going out line astern, so Latino in the darker colour one and Steve Warwick the one ahead. It does say Freightliner Racing there. There's just been a couple of small amendments to make that work, and Scotty Stancliffe going out now as well. Let's see if we can pick up our man who's at the head of the queue as we cycle through. There he is. Lime Mitch. Number 13 car has had a few changes of livery this year. Started out as the, bit close there. Started out as the Monster, I think, Bottle Mustang very, very early days. Then it was the Monster Energy Mustang for most of the year. It has now evolved into the, what can only be described as hideously looking Llama Motorsport. Actually looks like it belongs in a military installation. Looks like it's a camo livery running at certain distances. And he's done a 30.3 to the first sector, which is halfway along the back straight. But still very, very early days in the session. And now on to the second last straight, heading slightly downhill. Now, one thing you heard on the verdict from Scott Nolan is a big bump right there, just at that, around that first of the brake marker boards on the left-hand side. It's a really aggressive bump right at the point where you want to push the brake pedal. Given that this is a Formula One layout or Formula One circuit rather, by default, it's in a point where it doesn't really bother the Formula One cars too much, but it does bother a V8 supercar. So Lime Mitch's early marker of a 121.8 being very quickly suppressed. So Stenberg was the next man across the line to beat it, 120.8. And Devonish has gone with the 120.8 as well, 7 thousandths of a second quicker than what he has, what his counterpart in Kurt Stenberg has been able to do. So championship rivals are right in the thick of this pole position battle at the moment. And they've been the front runners all season long. There's a couple of other drivers that have boxed on with them, especially last round. Pete Savage, Scott Nolan boxed on very, very well and really took the fight to the front runners and made them really earn their points. I'm actually a bit surprised. I actually thought the qualifying session was going to go slightly longer than this, but I think it's a 10-minute session because that's what it's usually been for the shorter sprint races. So everybody got to get out and get on with it, basically, is what they've been told to do. And Will Devonish nearly 2 tenths up to Sector 2. And teammate Cam Rutledge gets out of the way. Probably would have got a nice little bit of a tow coming down that second straight. Does it translate into a better time at the line? It does. Quarter second gain. So 120.6. I think that's actually probably one of the best times we've seen so far. 682 for Kurt Stenberg was the best that we had seen, and that benchmark has now been lowered. So very, very handy times coming in at the moment. Scotty Stancliffe with a little bit of a moment going round. Lewis Wedding, I was looking to see if he had reverted to his loose SimSport livery, but no, he's gone with the Vodafone number 7 livery, normally piloted by Steve Burko. And just running wide at the final corner here. He's got 5 minutes to get himself a lap together. What else have we got going on out there? There's actually a really big gaggle of cars in the pit lane at the moment that are all just leaving. Scotty Stancliffe's in there, Nolan's in there, Lime Mitch is in there. Looks like Rutledge is going again as well. And they've just come out behind Wedding. Rhodey, currently P16. Had a little bit of improvement next to his name. And at the moment, his time was a 25.3 and he improves to a 24.3. So he finds nearly a second. Good gain there, gains 1 spot. That's over the Scuderia Alitalia pairing. So yeah, Cam Rutledge here was one of the guys that just exited the lane. And we cycle through the field and we keep an eye out for everybody that's having a moment. And having a moment right now is Higginson at the final corner. And thankfully he's done that on his own with not very many people behind. The next closest car was this man, Brennan Ross, so still was 10 seconds or so away at the time that incident occurred. And so by the time he gets to that part of the track, he's able to gather it all up and press on for another flying lap 3.5 minutes. This qualifying session has gone very, very quickly. And Wedding's time, as he's just said, is good enough for 13th. And he's gone back to the pits to try again. There were definitely a couple of quick drivers that were in the practice session earlier. It's good to see the likes of Scott Stancliffe mixing it up with the top 10. Hasn't been in the series for a little while, but a number of the Kiwis, including himself, and a number of other drivers, I'm sure, possibly watching along tonight, gearing themselves up for Super 2 tomorrow night. Double header tomorrow night, guys, for Super 2 over on the Loose 89 channel. So Phillip Island and Symmons Plains, so a pair of races from Symmons Plains first, and then short break, a pair of races from Phillip Island. And then the following round of Super 2 is going to be next Friday. So back-to-back weeks for Super 2 to close out 2020 for AMS Oz. And is Brendan Ross going to find improvement here? His time was a 22.5 last time around, and a 21.8, so very handy improvement. Up to, excuse me, up to position 7. We go back to the head of the queue, and current pole sitter Will Devenish has found no more improvements, but Stenberg has found some time, and he's found a big chunk. He's just ahead of Will on track here, so 3.5 tenths up into the final sector. Nice clean exit out of turn 10, and are we going to see a low 20? It's certainly been an achievement to get a low 20 as it comes up now. 20.5, so only a minor improvement. What has Will got in response? Nothing. They're only going to maybe get one more lap here. It'll be give and take. They might be lucky just to get to the line in time to get another lap, but that's if they don't bowl it wide like that. So top 2 press on. Scott Nolan's done really well. He's up to P3. 21.2 is his next benchmark. He only heads Luke Rosella, who wasn't actually scheduled to be in tonight, but he has found a nice bit of time, and that has just changed in the last few seconds as well. So Rosella's on a 21.6, close to Termo, and then Lyle Mitch has jumped up to be behind Scott Nolan by less than a tenth of a second. So there's a number of places changing in these last minute or two of qualifying. A number of drivers find themselves extremely close together. Now, Will's having a bit of an awkward moment at the last couple of corners. Now, is Stenberg going to get to the line for another bite at this cherry? He probably will. He'd probably just be lucky to get one. The timer counts down. I think he probably definitely will get another lap. The real question is going to be, is Will Devenish going to? And the answer to that is, it should be yes. Timer's counting down. He gets across the line for one more bite. Termo gives up the ghost, so that's it for him, and so too does Luke Rosella. So the next man we want to find is Lewis Wedding. Out of the final corner now, currently P13. This will be the final flying lap for him. Is there an improvement? No, not on this particular occasion. Stays P13. Scotty Stancliffe, he's found a nice chunk of time. He's found a half a second. What does that do for him? That actually would move him up at least 3 spots. It would move him up ahead of Brenton Foley if he can maintain that out of this final corner here. The same livery that himself and Tim Redmond ran in the Bathurst 500. And he does keep that half a second. He moves up ahead of Foley as we predicted, just behind Termo. That's a good last lunge. Ujit Mishra, no improvement. What about Cam Rutledge? He's down in P14. Finds a 1/10.5. No gain, though. Behind that, Brenton Foley, I believe that was. Yes, only a small improvement. Top of the field, though. Stenberg, what did he do the last couple of sectors? He had a purple first, green middle. Will had a green first, purple middle. 0.2 of a second gain for Stenberg. A 1/10 of a second gain for Devenish. So they both continued to lower the mark. So we got into a 20.3 as the pole lap right at the death, and it goes to Stenberg. So the championship rivals, positions 1 and 2, are positions 1 and 2 on the road, and will start positions 1 and 2 for the 200 kilometre race about to get underway. Well, with no Hans Brunswick around just at the moment, we will take a little bit of a quick look at last week's result, or last round's situation. So if you weren't with us, this is what happened. We had the retro twin sprint from Sandown, which meant retro liveries, and what it meant for Will Devonish is he finally converted one of these starts off the line. It's been one of his Achilles heels all season long, and he finally managed to pull one rather, on Kurt Stenberg, and it was surprisingly tame through the opening half of the lap, and there wasn't too many incidents to speak of throughout the course of the night. There was a number of fantastic battles as Stenberg went through in the second half of that lap and managed to repass Will. Retro livery was unfortunately not very lucky for Lewis Wedding. Straight on at turn 1 on the second lap and toured the outfield and came on probably as best as you could actually come on at having to rejoin the circuit there. And Scotty Nolan just getting it all crossed up at the chicane, and he would give that position back up the main straight. Turn 6 did claim its fair share of victims. Victim number 1 was Urjit Mishra in the Volvo in race 1. He wouldn't be the only one to have a few issues there throughout the night. But it was good to see Scotty Nolan, after having much amount of time out of the Supercars Championship, hadn't seen him since earlier on in the year, boxing on fairly and squarely with guys that have been in the title, in the championship for a good portion of this year, and he made his presence felt, really, really early. As well as turn 6, turn 9 claimed its fair share of victims. Brenton Foley was victim number 1, coughed up position to Pete Savage. It sort of wasn't his night the way he wanted it to go. And then this moment, this is where this first race changed on its head. Stenberg getting it all out of control, all out of shape at the run down to turn 9, had to come in to pit and make repairs. And the thing for him was he fell in behind this big battle group, including Rutledge, Ozrob, Termo and RSM Latino, and had to pick his way through the field. We questioned whether or not it was the right time for Will to come in and get the stop done, but he waited a bit longer, actually built up more of a gap and came out with a comfortable margin at the end of the day of a couple of seconds. And it was that incident that turned the whole race number 1 on its head. But this is where it all started to go wrong here for Stenberg. 2 wheels across the wrong side of the curb there, got a curb strike. 2 wheels across the curb there, got another curb strike as Cam Rutledge became the victim. And Stenny would have to do a pair of drive-throughs, and that would drop him down the field and lose him a chunk of points of his lead to Will Devonish, who went on to take the race win in race number 1. So as it stood after race 1, Devonish from Savage and Foley. Scott Nolan an excellent 4th on his return, and those penalties for Kurt Stenberg dropped him 1 lap down, and that is something we are not used to seeing. Kurt Stenberg 1 lap down, but all the times he's had trouble in any race this year, he's finished 11th, which was an amazing statistic that we pulled up in the second race, which when we got underway, Will Devonish fluffed the start big time. Savage got the jump, and then everybody managed to swamp Will Devonish on the run to turn 1. So all that hard work that he'd done in race 1 did not go according to plan. And then he would unfortunately find himself having to box on with everybody else, much the same way as Kurt Stenberg did in race 1 when he came out behind all that pit lane traffic. Just like the first race, the second race saw its fair share of victims at turn 9, a bit of a coming together between Higginson and Termo, and likewise for Rhodey into the back of Avenger Ben. And ultimately those positions were redressed and everything got on with it as well. And what also got on with it, and Hans Brunswick mentioned this as well, that the 2 guys that sort of don't like each other very much, but try to be as respectful as they can, were boxing on and didn't want to be in a phone box with these 2 for much longer. They were going at it hammer and tongs. They were throwing the kitchen sink at each other, much the same way that Kurt Stenberg was throwing the kitchen sink at all the lap traffic that he was trying to get past for position, and doing a fine job of it to latch onto the back of this battle, which meant when mistakes like this started to happen for Will Devenish, the opportunity was there to pounce. Scott Nolan created the wedge, and Stenberg went through as well. And then it would be a case of just damage minimisation for Will, as the others would kick away into the distance. Brenton Foley started to trigger a sequence of stops, but unfortunately for him, that moment right there where he accidentally fumbled the pit lane speed limiter again meant that he would do another drive-through, and it meant that Will Devenish stopped. It meant that Scotty Nolan also stopped, but then Scott covered off Will Devenish has stopped quite handsomely. It also meant the race leader in Pete Savage came in for a stop, and he would then go on to retain the lead after everybody else had been through the lane and the field was cleansed, and the gap had come down. Stenberg was cutting this margin down over the course of the second stint and got it down to quite a low number by the time they got to the checkered flag, but it was Savage that held on by just under 1 second, and another win for him this year. Very, very pleased with that result, and did not crack under the pressure that was being applied. So a win for Ford, a win for Savage, and a win for Loose Simsport in race 2, denying Kurt Stenberg another victory this year. And Devenish recovered to third, which was very important. It minimised the points deficit that he faces coming into tonight's proceedings. And good to see everybody in the top 12 there stayed on the lead lap after the second race was over. Which brings us to this situation here. That's how the points situation ended up after round 13. 192 points is the deficit between Stenberg and Devenish coming into tonight. And with Hans Brunswick here, Hans, this gap is not insurmountable. Mathematics say it can be done, but it's a hell of a mountain for Will Devenish to climb.
Hold on. Good evening, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, Will just needs to have a big dip tonight, and he needs to try and get that points margin to go the other way, it seems. If Kurt Stenberg has a terrible night, then it's possible that he can capitalise, but we don't think that's going to happen, so we'll see.
Yeah, we certainly will see. What it does mean, though, is the top three are safe, regardless of what happens tonight. Foley cannot pass Will, so position 3 is secure, and Foley cannot be passed by Burko behind either. It's just really a matter of what happens with the top 2. But then you have got a little bit of a nice battle brewing between Pete Savage, Lewis Wedding and Termo, who are, I think, only 2 of them are here tonight. I don't think Pete Savage is, but that's for fourth, 5th and 6th and 7th there. And if we have a quick sticky beak at the team's points before we go to green here. There we go. The team's championship, unfortunately, has been decided. There was a bit of a points calculation issue that needed to be resolved. There was an extra car being calculated for Loose Simsport. So it does mean that the team's championship is decided in favour of CRE Race Engineering prior to tonight. I'm sure there'll be a little protest coming that way a bit later on if you guys weren't too happy in the Loose Simsport camp, and understandably so. That those points had unfortunately been, I wouldn't say taken away from them, but corrected. And it does mean that there is a little bit of distaste in a few drivers' mouths. But that's the rules, and that's the way that they are, and they've been corrected. Well, Hans, I'm not sure if you've got your game up or not yet, seeing you've only just wandered in the door. But if you do, for the final time in 2020, why don't you roll us through this grid, my friend?
I've got my speaking game up, but I've dead set got no idea what times any of the blokes have done tonight, except for where they are positioned on the track. And most importantly, pole position goes to Kurt Stenberg. Yet another pole position for Kurt Stenberg. He's really been pumping them out this year. Will Devenish off the front row of the grid alongside Stenberg. Scott Nolan, a very stellar third qualifying position. Lime Mitch in the Llama Motorsport car. And Steve, I hope you got that hotkey again.
Oh, not quite, but I should have had it bound by now.
Oh, well, one day.
One day.
Brennan Ross makes his return, or actually he was here last time. But the thing is, at least he's coming for the. I mean, there's only one race tonight, isn't there? So
Correct.
yes, my game isn't up and running. My speaking game is going good, but I haven't got the facts in gear yet. Luke Rosella starts from 6th. He really likes the Bahrain circuit, or he dislikes it. I don't know, one of the two. Actually, no, Lewis really likes the Bahrain circuit, and we're having a bit of a discussion about that today. Turmo from 7th. Scott Stancliffe, good to see him in the field in the Kiwi Sim Sports 718 car. Very unlucky to DNF at the Bathurst 500. But their loss was my gain, Steve Burko and our gain. Brenton Foley from 9th, uncharacteristic to see him that far down the grid. Orjit Mishra in 10th, coming off one of his first podium positions. RSM Latino in 11th in the guest car. Actually, it's a guest car on my screen, but Steve, I believe it's not a guest car on your screen.
Correct, it's the Black Shores Racing Commodore.
There you go. Well, right on cue. Nathan Higginson out of 12th in the Higginson Motorsport car. Lewis Wedding in the retro 888 Falcon. That's actually usually driven by Steve Burko, not driven by Burko tonight. Cam Rutledge for CRE Motorsport Pro B. He's been improving, and he's good to see him back after his shoulder surgery. Steve Warwick from 15th in the is that a retromobile as well, or it looks like a retromobile to me, but it's probably not. It's just the usual Black Shores livery. Brody from 16th, Brian Walsh from 17th. Good to see Walshy back, actually. He hasn't been here for a while. And Glenn Miles rounding out the 18 car field, and all Scuderia Alitalia back row of the grid. And yeah, fantastic. The cars look good.
They certainly do. Yeah, a couple of livery updates for this one. But the timing and the lights wait for no one. Just waiting on a couple of drivers to get into position. Here we go. Let's go out with a bang for Supercars in 2020. 53 laps of the Bahrain International Circuit. We are away. Pretty even start from the front two. It wasn't that bad at all, but of course the staggered grid means that it looks a little bit different compared to what it otherwise would. And positions should be being held. But look, no, late dive, Lime Mitch. Big late dive from Lime Mitch. Going to steal away position number 1. Gets in front of Kurt Stenberg. Forces him to check up. Great move. Ambitious move. And Will Devenish Will Devenish having a bit of a sneaky look at turn 3 and 4 as well. What a fantastic start from Lime Mitch.
That is a dead set superstar move if ever I've seen one, Lime Mitch. Fantastic.
He's going to have to go defensive here. Stenberg's got a really good run onto the back straight, so he's going to have to just run him out wide here. Is he going to give it away? No, it looks like he's going to just try and run with him, but Stenberg's going to have the high ground when they get to turn 8.
Stenberg got a good run in that corner as well, so the later apex seemed to have worked for him. He managed to straighten it. Oh, no, not quite. He had a bit of a moment, but he's at the B pillar, and Lime Mitch is going to have to yield here. And he does, so he goes back to 2nd. But he's jumped all the way up from 4th, so very impressive. He might be a chance of losing a spot to Will Devenish here. And he goes defensive, and he covers off that move quite well. Kurt Stenberg, a little bit wide of the apex. But they come back on to the main straight. The shortened V8 supercar layout.
Yep, shortened V8 supercar layout. Same one that was run from 2006 to 2010, as we said earlier in the night. But, of course, the 2009 race didn't happen. Yep, so Nolan...
Right in the back of shot.
Yep, so that's Nolan. That's Nolan Ross, and that was for a brief moment Luke Rosella.
Look at this. He's going to make a pass on Rosella. No, he's not.
Oh, late send. And
very late send there.
Nolan boxing on with Brendan Ross at the moment. Will Devenish hasn't been able to clear Lime Mitch's Mustang, so he had a look at turn 1. He wasn't able to get that job done, so I'm not sure what this does from a strategy point of view for Will. Keep in mind, he needs to win this race, and the mathematics we'll get into in just a few moments. He's now fairly, I wouldn't say fairly and squarely alongside. He was getting close to being fairly and squarely alongside going into the braking zone at the end of the back straight. But Lime Mitch is holding his own here, and holding his own really, really well against seasoned campaigners.
So Turmo and Stancliffe each have lost 3 positions off that start. So very, very bad start for them. Meanwhile, Lewis Wedding gets up to 12th. He's just passed RSM Latino. Turmo's off! He's just spun off the exit of the curb.
There he is. Yep, back a shot, and away he goes. So first victim for the night. Let's have a sticky beak on the replay as to what happened here. So you rightly pointed out, Stancliffe and Turmo had lost a couple of positions each off the start. And Turmo's now plumb last in the field. So what did he do here? Was it just under braking? And
Next to the corner, he's
yeah,
gassed up.
he's gassed it up a bit too early. Oh, got a swapper on. Big fistful of opposite lock. And rotates car
And
51.
meanwhile, Lion Mitch has gone back down to fourth, so I'm just going to see where all that has happened, because it might have happened coming out of the final corner. He's had a moment. He's steered well wide of the ideal line into the final corner.
Yep, and he was vulnerable. So here he is on the main straight. So Nolan had a good run on him. And, yeah, made a nice pass down the inside going
look
into
at the
turn one.
two best mates, Will Devonish and Scott Nolan. They're at it again. Another round, another day, it seems.
Yep, another day, another dollar for these ones. And Nolan's gone through. And now Lion Mitch, you saw it in the back of shot.
Outside, and he's going to go off the road.
And he's going to be careful when he rejoins here. He cannot come back on at that rate, and he's done pretty well there. There's plenty of opportunities here for drivers to rejoin parallel to the circuit to avoid being running into other cars. And now look at this.
It's being very defensive here.
It's the Bathurst 500 teammates now deciding they want to rub door handles with each other.
I think they want. Oh, Devonish has gone wide. He's just done the line Mitch at the final corner.
Yep, he's lost position. So Lion Mitch, Luke Rosella. There goes Brendan Ross. Bretton Foley's the next man in the queue. This is not working out for Will Devonish in this early going, and he's going to need some sort of safety car intervention or some sort of divine intervention, I think we'd call it at this rate. Have a look at the snakies going on behind. Stancliffe defending from Higginson, and Wedding's buying into this as well. This is fantastic stuff. Rosella's around! Rosella's around! Oh, how'd they manage to avoid him? And Devonish is off the road. Was there contact?
I'm just having a look now. We're going to find out. We are going to find out.
Yeah, I reckon there was. Let's put this up on the replay. Let's have a look what happened here. We go on board.
Oh, Will Devonish, he's just fired into the rear quarter panel, the right rear quarter panel. Oh, and he's been collected by Stancliffe, so there's probably steering damage aboard.
Yep. So this
That's
is not
terrible.
There you go. So that's what happened there. The opening few laps for Will Devonish have been, if you were rating them, they would be rated D for disaster.
I'd rate it F for fail, because it's been a complete failure of a launch tonight for Will Devonish. He's had to perform, and unfortunately it's not gone his way.
No, definitely not. And I think Rosella will be a bit aggrieved with what's happened there as well.
Nolan had a moment going to the final corner as well, so everyone's struggling. Foley's struggling coming out of the corner, so too Orjit Mishra.
The big issue with the final corner. Yeah, the big issue with the final corner.
It's very tight, and then you've got to unwind the lock while you're accelerating. So it's going to be chaos down there for sure.
The big issue.
Luke Rosella overtaking Steve Warwick.
Yeah. The big issue with the final corner, though, Hans, is actually the approach to the final corner, because there's a big dirty bump right in the braking zone, right where you want to mash your foot to the floor.
Oh, 3 wide through turn 1. Sorry,
and that
Steve.
upsets your line, and it upsets your turn in and everything for the final corner, there's actually 2 corners there. There's turn 9 and turn 10 is effectively a kink, which you really don't notice. We call those inconsequential corners. But
yeah,
it's a trait that a lot of drivers have remarked and sort of put their hands up and just gone, hang on, is that supposed to be there? The answer is yes, it is, because that's what it is in real life.
And this led to my earlier comments in the week, and I said, I believe Lion Mitch asked how many laps is this race tonight, and I said 1 lap of this place is simply one too many.
Yeah, when you're going around with the bumps like that, I completely agree. And there's a secondary bump as well on the transition from or the runoff road that effectively joins the GP lad and the paddock circuit together at the back straight. You'll see some of the cars get a little bit of airtime. You can just see the cars that are just pinching brakes and puffs of smoke coming up right on that screenshot just a few seconds ago. That's that dirty bump we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just in the wrong place of the corner, and it just causes all sorts of chaos. Luke Rosella on the charge back to the front of the field. He's on the inside of RSM Latino. Car's Barenzuela. Oh, Devonish, late send. Oh, he's hip and shouldered Barenzuela off the road.
Yep.
And I'd be pretty dirty about that move, because he came from a fair way back, and I was clenching for a minute because I thought he was going to go back into the back of Luke Rosella, and I don't think Luke wants to see that again.
No, definitely not. And you can see here was the pass going on. So Rosella was fair and square alongside, and yeah, Will just closed at a really vast rate. I think just tried to follow him through Oh, it's not terrible. I mean, it was a bit of a late move, but it doesn't look like there was too much contact on our
You
screen.
could say
but
it was
you're
a
right.
big dip.
It was a dip. There, that definitely is the one you can say about that there. He had a pretty solid debut at the last round. RSM Latino was in, of course, Freightliner Racing colours in the last round. Has since upgraded to, it says there Freightliner Racing, but of course it is the Blackshaw Smash Repairs livery. And if we have a look at his results from that round, a 9th and a 10th, so 2 top 10 finishes. Currently P12 and pretty solid. So good debut. And
We should make mention that he was actually finished second in the ASC Super 2 Championship, and Will Devonish has just gone in the back of Luke Rosella again. Fortunately, no spin there, but RSM Latino, he finished second in the ASC Super 2 Championship standings after leading a sizable portion of that championship season. So he's a pretty handy steerer.
Absolutely, and it's good to see that there's been a crossover this year. I mean, there's one or two drivers that started over with ASC that have made their way across to AMS Oz, and that's slowly, I think, doubled this year to 4. And likewise, going back the other way, good to see that skills that drivers have learnt in AMS Oz, the guys over at ASC have been nice to take them on board and take them into some of the series. I mean, for some of them, it's been a bit of a harder learning curve than others, but for some of them, it's just really been good for them to see how their skills stack up against some pretty decent competition over there.
I'm still a bit sad about the ASC 1000. You know, Lewis Wedding and I, we could have had a good result, but unfortunately, we got taken out of that race through computer issues for Lewis. So unlucky. But it was a good series and good fun as well.
Well, here comes Luke Rosella trying to make a move on Brenton Foley, who's wide. And this is the thing here. So Rosella created the wedge, opened the door, and Devonish tried to go through it, but he wasn't able to make that stick. And now a late dive down the inside at 4. So that's a move we haven't seen anybody really try and make a passing move there so far tonight. And actually, Will's done that pretty well. That was a very opportunistic move.
Opportunism is king, and a passing maneuver is very impromptu. You've got to back yourself, and you've got to make it happen, it seems.
Well, let's come now to the mathematics part of this equation. So coming into tonight, the lead for Kurt Stenberg in the championship was 192 points. So in order to make that swing happen, Will needed to... There's 18 cars tonight. Unfortunately, we've lost both the Scuderia Alitalia cars, one last lap and one a couple of laps ago. But the equation was Will needed to win the race and basically have Stenny finish 17th or lower, pretty much. He pretty much needed a DNF from the current points leader, which I honestly don't think is going to happen. If Stenberg did DNF, Will could get away with finishing as low as 6th place, and he would then take the title. If he finished 7th, they would have been tied with Stenberg having a DNF. There would have then been a count back, and it would have gone to Stenberg hands down on the number of race victories. So those were the simple maths coming into tonight, and it's not sort of the divine intervention I think that Will's looking for at the moment. Doesn't show any signs of rearing its head right now.
Absolutely not. In fact, you could say the only divine intervention has been against him so far, because it's just been total chaos for his race.
And have a look at the gap that Stenberg's pulled out already. 6.2 seconds. His best lap at a 20.9, and it's now at 6.7. So look at he's the only man circulating in the 21s at the moment. And let's have a look at his lap this time around. It's 21.1 last time around. 21.2 this time around, and we go back to Scott Nolan. I think is doing 22s last time we checked. Yeah, 22.0. So drivers starting to pace themselves, and I guess start thinking about long-term game with strategy. Lime Mitch still boxing on. Hans, have a look at position number 4.
Georgette Mishra, he's always managing to gain positions. The perennial place getter.
It's going to take over that
we'll
mantle.
Have to give that. we've got to give that mantle to him now.
Yeah, well, perennial place getter back in the early days of AMS Oz was Matt Williams. He was the one we always referred. Matt Williams, Scruff.
I don't know the bloke.
Yeah,
I know the bloke from a barrow.
Yeah, you wouldn't have met him. He was the one we dubbed that perennial place getter, and then when sort of he sort of moved on from the series, I think it was late last year. We haven't really coined a moniker for anybody moving forward, but he's just lost a place there to Brendan Ross, who himself is having a good race. Started P5.
Spun in sympathy.
He did, and Mishra up 5 spots. Started position 10, and boy, this kid can drive. I'm hoping to God that somebody has organised to get him a set of chocks for his chair, because he's complained a couple of times now. His chair's rolled out of the way a few times, and that's been the cause of a couple of his accidents. And we did say someone's got to get him something to stop that chair from rolling around. So for his sake, I hope that has happened.
I wouldn't even stop at the chocks. I personally would not even stop at the chocks. If I had bucket loads of money, and if I were tempted to become a sim dad and buy a direct drive wheel and load cell pedals and be 5 seconds off the pace, I would give those to him, because he would definitely put them to good use.
Well, I'm staring down the barrel of a sort of a retirement fund coming up, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can pass my sim rig on. The problem is I'd have to get it to Manila. So that's the expensive part of this equation. Just getting an update on what happened to Glenn Miles and Brian Walsh. Brian Walsh, maybe it looks like it might have been a disconnect for him. And then Glenn Miles, it's saying on our screen that not finished because of suspension. So that means he's probably had an accident somewhere along the line.
Termo's off the road somewhere.
Contacted a wall. And Termo down in position 14.
Termo way off the road. Hang on, I'm just going to go back to the replay and find this. Because he's ended up somewhere way out of bounds of the circuit. No, he hasn't. Never mind.
No, I'm looking at it now going, it looks like he's all okay at the moment, so...
Yeah, it was just weird, because it looked like... Maybe it was a timing glitch, because it looked like Cam Rutledge passed him on the screen, then all of a sudden he got back past again, so yeah.
He's plodding along in his retro livery from
last
Foley,
week. Big move on Wedding. Is he going to get there?
No, doesn't look like he did. And they're side by side now out of the final corner, so... Drag race down to turn 1. Wedding on the left, Foley on the right. There's the view from T-Cam. And
Two red cars, I can't tell the difference.
And Wedding just a fraction late on brakes. Oh, did Luke Rosell have a lag moment?
He's had a lag.
He's had one of those moments again, because he came back to them in a big hurry. The conniptions would have kicked in right then. Over and under. Over and under from Wedding. Fantastic move. Fantastic situational awareness. Gets that spot back.
I just realised the track cameras here are pretty ordinary.
I've actually got some updated ones. So courtesy of Lewis Wedding, he actually dived in and did a little bit of an update for us to give us some extra cameras. So the visuals are quite good for the broadcast. But yeah, there are...
Good on your end, but they're shopping over here. But oh well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. That's unfortunately that's the way that it happens.
The joys of live streaming, isn't it?
It is. That's one of the things that we realised pretty quickly. There were a few cameras that needed a couple of things to look at. So they've sorted those out, thank God. And look, hats off to a number of the AMS Oz admins this year. Lewis Wedding's been one of the livery painters. He's also been one of the track masters, getting a lot of track signage done, cameras done.
Is there anything Lewis can't do? He's Superman.
I'm trying to work out. There's a survey coming up a bit later on, and we'll have to see what's in there that people say that if he was good at something or bad at something or not. But what's good and bad going on now is at the front, Brendan Ross, Ujit Mishra, Scott Stancliffe, Will Devenish, they're all locked together. So Will Devenish has been able to clear Luke Rosella by virtue of that lag spike, or game lag spike that he had, and is now really stuck in an awkward position here, because he's got nowhere to go. He's going to try and create a wedge down the middle of the track. There's going to go 3 wide to turn number 6. Oh, Lordy.
Scott Stancliffe was like, thank you very much. I'm going to go through as well.
And Will Devenish, is he going to be able to round Brendan Ross up by the time they get to turn 9? And a little bit of side-by-side leaves him the space.
No, not quite.
But now the best thing
Jury's still out on that one.
the best part of the thing here is we get to get a really good representation of what it's like to brake on the dirty side versus the non-dirty side. And see the big puffs of smoke there from Will. And it's going to take him the better part of this lap to confirm this pass. I don't think he's really going to confirm this job until we get all the way back to where this started, which was down at turn 1, 2 and 3. And behind them, you can see Foley's having another dip at Lewis Wedding. And now Will Devonish confirms the pass and goes up to P4. Now, the thing for him was that all started as well by being able to clear Rosella once that game issue happened for him. For some reason, he's also told me that it only happens in AMS. We're not 100% sure why. But we saw that happen on his debut in Barbagallo. He was in a fantastic position and all of a sudden ended up with a few of them happening in quick succession. Ended up a lot further down the field than he otherwise would have. And now got it all to do from P10. 1/4 distance, Hans. Gone pretty quickly. 19 minutes into this race, we're already at 1/4 distance.
Yeah, it's always nice at a circuit like this. That means there's only 3/4 of the race to go. Fabulous.
That's right.
Oh, Will Devonish, he almost spun it off the curb.
And that's ahead of this battle. Look at that. Foley and Wedding still bumping door handles. And it's still going on ahead of him as well. Mishra's been shuffled back to 7th. And trying to follow Scott Stancliffe through on Brendan Ross. I think a number of these Super 2 guys have jumped in tonight just to get some extra seat time in preparation for tomorrow night. But the Supercars guys are showing them how it's done. Oh, I thought Wedding was diving for the pit lane there for a minute. Saw him off the other camera, but no, he's just trying to break the toe. Oh, big lock up for Rossi. Stancliffe tried the over and under. Didn't quite work out. The car wasn't where he wanted it to be to make that move work. And now thinks about a late send at 4. And Rossi's off the road, and that's going to give Stancliffe a bit of a incentive here. But loses out on the drag race.
How's the Mumbo in a straight line from the 444 car? It's pretty good.
He's got good drive off of that turn 4 and getting through the transition where it drops down onto the back straight. He's really got a good run going there, despite the fact that he's sort of sideways at several corners and sort of getting made to be a bit loose and a bit sideways by the nose of the 718 rubbing across the back there and giving him a bit more Morse code as they go through turn 9.
The boys at play.
And look at them train from behind. So we've got 2 3-car battles here. Oh, big moment. That's the one that Stancliffe wanted. He opened the moment, got opened up there, and gets the job done.
Performance. Fantastic.
That was fantastic braking performance. And I think Brendan Ross just got a little bit out of sorts. And now he's trying for the over and under and looking to hold position as they head down this front straight again. So this is good battling. This is good Supercars, hard racing between all of these guys. And look, so Rossi tries to get the block pass on there, but he doesn't quite hold them up enough. And then he's vulnerable. But Mishra is trying to stick his nose in here as well. And so too is Stancliffe. So everybody racing really, really hard, but really, really fair here.
Might be expecting the first round of pit stops because I see Brendan Ross has got the little wrench symbol just above his name.
Yeah, so he's possibly looking at one here. Now, I did do a little bit of math on this a little bit earlier. I worked out with I think it's a 110 litre tank that these cars have. And if you're paying sort of close attention to the hot lap that was run earlier. Oh, Stancliffe's off the road and Rossi's having a big moment, and that's going to concertina up this whole field. Those 2 3-car battles have now sandwiched together into one big 6-car block. And it all started by Stancliffe going off the road there, just out of nowhere. And now he's really got it all to do. Coming back to your pit stop comment here, Hans, and I think I heard the hooter just go off a few seconds ago. Looking at about 19 to 20 laps for a tank. If you're paying attention, Foley's and Nolan in the pits, and Rossi's taking the bait. So here you go. So some drivers have worked out what they need to do. Get to stop well before the line. And there's Nolan. And they're the only 2 drivers to stop. If you're watching Scotty Nolan's hot lap a little bit earlier, you would have noticed in the bottom corner that he came up with a fuel figure of about 5.5 to 5.6 litres, I think it was, for a lap around this place, you're on power for at least, 60% of the lap. So it does chew through the fuel quite a fair bit. Definitely a two-stop race, doesn't matter how you want to slice and dice it. So Rossi's gone at lap 16, or the end of lap 16, and that would mean he would have to go long in these final two stints to try and make it all the way to the end. So you've got 53 laps. You try and split that up as evenly as you can. You're roughly working on about 17 to 18 laps a stint. So he's going to be maybe having a couple of long stints in there, but good to see that he's trying something a little bit different. Gets him out of this battle pack. That's the important thing. The question is, where did it bring him out?
Top three cars are still pushing on. And Brendan Ross is out in 14th.
Turn one now. Yeah, he's gone a lap down to Stenberg. Lime Mitch is coming up to him as well. So the timing for that didn't work out the way he wanted it. Yep. So he's in, and he's the only one taking the bait there by the look of it. And Higginson was in as well. So Higginson has been in, and he's now gone a lap down. You can see him there.
About to get to the blend line.
Yep. So everybody's starting. I expect there to be a big gaggle of cars coming about the same lap if everybody's just trying to see how far the fuel goes. So the one that I was most interested in is to see where the first of the stoppers came out. So the first of them was Scott Nolan. So he's also gone one lap down. Now, of course, there's no lucky dog in this series. So if a safety car was to come out, you wouldn't get that lap back. But given the proximity of the race leaders to Scotty Nolan, expect them to stop. And speak of the devil, there is the race leader in the lane. So Stenberg in. So that means everybody that has stopped will get their lap back. And there is Stenberg. Now, there was another car in the lane, I think, as well, and that's the Mishra car just leaving now. So, and Lime Mitch in too. So the car that was in second place is in, and Devonish goes around again. So I guess maybe he's hoping for a bit of traffic to get involved here and maybe gain a little bit of time back. So we'll have to keep an eye on where Stenberg feeds back into this.
And Latino is coming to the pits. The next car down in the queue. He pits from 8th position.
Stenny's now dropping down to 6th and he's on the move. Now, where does he feed back into this? Yep, and there's Turmo in as well. Lime Mitch on the move, so everyone's starting to make their moves. A few cars, I think, starting to unlap themselves. I think Higginson might be the next one. That's Cam Rutledge going through. And the next man is Lime Mitch behind him, and Turmo has had a few off-track excursions. So this has actually worked out pretty well for Stenberg. And I noticed he didn't worry too much about when to release the limiter exactly at the line. He waited until he was well clear of the pit lane safety line before releasing. It was at least 2 car lengths beyond it. So zero risk. Taking absolutely zero risk. And I mean, he's in the luxury of position of being able to do that.
4-car battle pack right now for second on the road. Lewis Wedding, Scott Stancliffe, Luke Rosell, and Brenton Foley, I should say. Yellow flag.
Yep. Now the yellow flag, I think, will be for the
local yellow flag.
Yeah, then that'll likely be for cars that are entering the pit lane. Oh, Scotty Nolan! That's Nolan. Nolan at the side of the road. Now, is that an engine gone?
Yeah, the car's dead.
Yep, that car has lost an engine, and here it is on the replay. Yeah, coasting. I saw him in the background coming off as we were watching Stenberg come out of the lane, and I reckon he was wide at the final corner, so I reckon, yeah, he's gone on the down change, and yeah, out. And look at this. This is a very busy pit lane at the moment as well. I mean, I know we're watching Scott Nolan, but this is a very busy pit lane right now. So Rutledge in, Stancliffe in, Devonish is in and on the move, and then everybody else along with it. So former race leader will go through here and resume his position at the top of the queue. Now, where's Lime Mitch? Because he was the next man in the sequence we wanted to keep an eye out for, and here he is. So coming across the line, he should go back to second, and he does. And Will's just left the lane now. So I think Will's made a nice little gain here time-wise over Lime Mitch.
Unsafe release, Luke Rizella. Unsafe release.
Oh, this... And these guys are going to sort themselves out here on exit. Is Rosella just going to give it up, or is he going to fight for it? No, Foley does the gentlemanly thing there. Now, it's not the first time.
We've got Tim Schenken on the radio. Tim, what have you got for us? Pit lane drive-through penalty for Luke Rosella. Pit lane drive-through penalty for Luke Rosella. Unsafe release.
Well, he'd been pinged for an unsafe release as a post-race penalty at the Gold Coast. Now, he didn't make contact with anybody. The pit lane's wide enough. They did sort themselves out, but we have gone back and captured that just to see what goes on. I'm sure there'll be a bit of gentlemanly banter, I guess is probably the right words we can use after the race is over.
Absolute roast.
Well, that's your terminology for it. I'm being polite, you're being correct.
Oh, Brendan Ross is off the road. He's all the way out in the boonies, and he's going to lose 5th place to the guy who coined the phrase boonies, Lewis Wedding.
There he goes. So that was off of the turn 9, the big sweeping turn 9. And off he goes. So he's still in the draft though. Wedding's definitely going to try and break this toe. Here we go. Trying to shake off the 444. You can see the gains just starting to be made here. Rossi has a look at where his braking marker is. Got a head of steam, but quite early on the brakes, and you can hear them on the downshift as well. Just nice and gentle, not really forcing the shift changes too hard. A long race to go. Still plenty of time on this clock. Good to see Lewis is still boxing on. And originally, he wasn't actually meant to be full-time in the series. He painted up the liveries for the HDS cars, the Top Gear Racing Volvos he painted up, as well as all the loose SimSport cars. And despite originally saying that he wasn't going to be full-time, he'd race when he could, he's only missed the 2 rounds. He missed out on the Albert Park round, and the other one he missed was the Hamilton 200. So he's raced 12 rounds out of 14 and finds himself 5th overall in the championship. And it's important for him to stay where he is too, because he'll jump ahead of Pete Savage if he finishes on the road tonight. I think no matter pretty much where he finishes, he's behind Pete by 81 points. But it's also important for him to stay ahead of Termo, because Termo is right up his chuff in the driver's standings to the tune of 24 points is all it separates Wedding in 5th. Wedding in 6th and Termo in 7th.
Lewis Wedding, he's only missed 2 of the 14 rounds. He's raced in 12 of them. That's not bad for someone who's not going to race in this series full time, he said, at the start of the season. Yeah.
And look, to be fair, we've got a yellow flag down here at, that would have been just for... Oh, no, we got Rosella. We got Rosella's off the road. What's happened to Luke Rosella? So he 15th man, and what's going on here? I think he's had some sort of a moment, gone off the track, and we haven't been able to capture that. So something's gone a bit glitchy, I think, with the game there.
Play R5 now, so we're going to have a look.
You can rewind it a bit further than I can, but yeah, he's trying to get out of the infield. I reckon maybe he's either had a moment where he's collected a wall and he's sort of caught in no man's land or something, but he's on the inside at turn 4. Now that's yellow flags until the car either gets going again or he DNFs.
Lag. It must be lagging a serious amount, because the car just sort of stopped on the road just coming out of turn 4. So there you go.
Yeah, that'll be what it is then.
Very issue for young Luke Rosella.
I think that's his night done as well, sadly. I think that's his night done. So, yeah, and there it is. So, a DNF for Rosella. So, along with Scotty Nolan, 4 cars DNFing inside the first 20 laps. Well, Luke Rosella was lap 21.
Hang on. I've just cut back to live pictures. Brenton Foley and Scott Stancliffe have ended up off the road together at the final corner. Stancliffe's locked it up, and he's just fired into the back of Foley. Yeah, so big mistake there. He's just gotten up that bump, and the car didn't ride the bump that well. So
here it is. We're just winding it back
not.
now to have a look, and you can see here in the braking zone. And
meanwhile, Termo was cut in the background of that replay, and now Foley has made a mistake all in his own. So promptly, he's just undid. that good favour from Scott Stancliffe.
Yeah, Stancliffe did the gentlemanly thing there, and we just lost Steve Warwick as well, so that's another car out of this race. So the attrition rate's starting to become quite high. The heat in the desert is on, and already a number of drivers just struggling. We did say, on paper, it looks like it's a simple track, but it is deceptively difficult. The elevation changes going through this part of the circuit is where it goes up, and Foley's had a moment, and he's had a big swapper on, and is well and truly off the road at 9. And just as we were saying that parts of this circuit are really tricky to manage, he then lets Turmo through into the top 10.
He's just overcorrected. So he's got the opposite lock on, and he's just had too much opposite lock.
Yeah, spot on. That was what it was. He got out on the curb, it just hung up on him, couldn't catch it, rotated the car, and away we go. Some of the drivers that have not finished this race joining us in the live chat. Scotty Nolan saying that the view from this one is much better. Obviously wasn't enjoying himself too much. Luke Rosella, and a pop-up this time, so not a game freeze, but something else causing that issue, and not able to get the thing going again. I guess it's the old thing, with Windows 10. There's all sorts of silly little things that come up, and you need to do some things like schedule restarts and things like that to stop those sorts of things from coming up.
Yeah, don't you just love it? Don't you just love it? We all bloody prepare all our setups and everything, and the fundamentals let us down.
Yeah, just the basic fundamentals, I guess, is what we can
It's
call
just
it.
like real life motorsport, isn't it?
Yeah, the big letdown after the big, the big build-up. Then there's the big letdown.
You talk about hundredths of a second, tenths of a second, thousandths of a second, then you realise, hang on a second, didn't mean the pun there, but you realise things like pop-ups, well, you're going to lose a bucket load more time there.
So the two closest battles that are on track at the moment is this one. So the Lewis Wedding and Brendan Ross battle over 4th and 5th, which you're just watching on your screen here. The other one, which is probably not too far away from materialising, is the Will Devonish and Lime Mitch battle. Now, Will has been closing down the margin to Lime Mitch quite easily over the last couple of laps, as a 120.927 becomes the fastest racing lap for Kurt Stenberg, continuing to cement his advantage. So the margin last time around was 2.9 seconds. And there is the former Monster Energy Mustang, now the Llama Motorsport Mustang. And it's now 2.4, so a good gain. Half-second gain this lap for Will Devish, starting to churn out some really nice consistent laps. Just a little bit wide of the apex at 1. But there will be a battle for position number 2 on the road, probably in about 5 or so laps time, Hans. Just rough maths here.
Yeah, and when that battle does materialise, I wonder if Lime Mitch is going to complain about the parity about the Mustang like he's been complaining all season.
Yeah, I know he's had a bit of a bee in his bonnet about that one, and even so much as
to say the least.
Yeah, and even so much as to when it came, I think it was Townsville, he jumped in about 3 or so different cars and ended up agreeing that, okay, they are actually right. There is actually no difference between these cars.
That hasn't stopped him from complaining, however, to Tiga officials about the homologation of the Ford Mustang in AMS Oz.
Now, I'm led to believe there's possibly a couple of revisions, some styling cues and things coming for the Mustang in 2021.
Yes, it's going to be re-homologated, and amongst that, there's a silly season to play out as well, so a few drivers will be on the move, and you will not be expecting where.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a word on the street sort of going as to where certain drivers will end up next year. Of course, the teams thing from this year was brought about to try and encourage a bit of participation and a bit of data sharing and getting everybody up to speed to bring the overall standard of the driving up. And I think it's done just that. Will Devonish has been one of the drivers to lend his ear to a lot of them, especially people like Turmo and Cam Rutledge. Cam, one of those drivers that's found a lot of time since last year at all the tracks that he's been to, in some cases well over a second. the whole point of the teams was to help try and facilitate that, which I think it's done. But it also means that a number of drivers get to see who's actually good and who they want to race with next year. And there's already been a lot of off-season moves, I guess we can call it in inverted commas, where handshake agreements have been made for what seats will be getting filled next year. No word on what cars they'll be driving, but I've already got some word that AAR, which is All Australian Races, and the Loose Sim Sport guys have very quickly thrown their hats in the ring to several drivers to try and encourage them for next year.
I have actually been asked on occasion by a prospective team owner saying if I wanted to drive next year, and I said, no, go away. So I said I'm happy commentating, so that was quite interesting.
Well, that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, Hans.
Well, at least I'm good at something. I'm clearly not good at commentating, so at least I'm good enough at racing.
No, we've shared boxes together in real life. We share boxes together in the sim racing world. And I'd rather be here doing the commentary more so than doing the racing. I guess this year sort of became a bit of a difficult one for me to sort of do both. And it got to the point where racing for me I wasn't enjoying it as much. So sort of was more than happy to step aside and give up, spots that have been taken by a number of other guys in the series. And I'm not 100% sure if I'll be back in the saddle at any stage in 2021. ARW coming up next week. At this stage is the last racing I'll probably be doing in 2020, and I'm mulling retirement for ARW as it stands right now. So we'll have to see how I feel next year, but at this stage, more than happy to be in the box, putting the broadcast together, and more than happy to be calling little battles like this that are just starting to, as we said, materialise. And it's actually taken a little bit less time than what we thought. It's taken about 3 laps rather than the 5 for Will Devonish to close in on Lime Mitch's Llama Motorsport Mustang.
You take the L out of Llama and it's still Llama, and Will Devonish is on the back of it quite quickly. So let's see if that Llama is going to go scampering away into the distance, or if it's going to be turned into Llama meat, if there is ever such thing.
Yeah, not 100% sure. We'll have to see how he goes here. We're just on board, following him up through probably one of the more difficult parts of the track. This elevation change comes over the crest, and then you've got to spot your braking marker real quick. And Lime Mitch has gone deep. He's gone deep, left a little bit of an opening there at turn 9, and Will just wasn't close enough to make it stick. But now he might have a bit of a dip here into turn 10. And it was close enough alongside and just keeps the nose in there. Just keeps it in there just so Lime Mitch is forced to give him a little bit of space.
And how's the drive up the corner for Devonish? That's pretty good.
Yeah, very nice drive. Look at him pulling away. Lime Mitch straight away into the slipstream here. Now Will's going to have to cover, or Lime Mitch is going to send it back on him. Last of the late breakers. Devonish prevails. Okay.
I think Mitch perhaps knows that he's sort of run and done here, because barring something else, I think Will has hit his stride right now. So now it's on for Will to chase the lead driver at the moment, Kurt Stenberg. We haven't really talked much about him because he's 26 seconds ahead, and he's really dominated this race so far.
Yeah, he has. Just like he's dominated probably a large chunk of this series as well. We're just refreshing our live timing at live races to get a few extra bits of information here. But if we have a look at Kurt Stenberg's the form book, I guess we call it, and the form was with him coming into tonight. The mathematics said that it was his to lose, basically. He just needed to cruise around and finish. He even didn't need to go out at the rate that he is and dominate the race. He could have just cruised around, picked any finishing position, and just sort of said, you know what, I'm still going to be ahead at the end of the day. But he was asking for the math earlier on in the night. The form book, let's have a look. He had a streak of 7 wins from 7 starts to open the championship before the race win was finally taken off him at Barbagallo by Will Devonish, and then the second one went to Brenton Foley, and he finished P2 on both those races, which is the one probably that he would have wanted to win the most, the home race, as every driver wants to win. And he would have been happy to finish on the podium, but gutted to not been on the top step. He then had a bank of 3 race wins from Townsville through to both races at Hidden Valley, and then his last win came in Sydney Motorsport Park. So 10 wins on the season, 11 wins on the season from 21 races so far. It'll be 12 from 22 races if he can chalk up the victory tonight, which he is doing an extremely good job of solidifying that right now.
I guess it shows the level of driving ability that Kurt Stenberg has in sim racing. He's done a very good job. Been sim racing for a very long time, I believe over 10 years. Started on R Factor and has pretty much dipped his toe in every sort of sim. He mostly does iRacing and AMS these days. So yeah, he does a pretty good job. He's a regular in V8 Scops as well, so that shows the level of ability he has.
Yeah, sure is. And one of the interesting stats that I brought up earlier in the night, I think we brought this up in the last round as well. In any of the races where he's had trouble, where he's had an accident, or he's ended up with post-race penalties or something, of course Gold Coast is the big example of that, he's finished 11th. There's 3 11th place finishes on the season for him. Calder Park Race 2, remember he had that spin off of the final corner within sight of the finish line and ended up having all sorts of troubles getting home in that race. Gold Coast, he ended up with a couple of post-race penalties for jumping the start and for the pit exit blend line infringements. And the other one was just last round, first race at Sandown, ended up taking a bit too much curb at some of the corners, ended up with some track cut violations, ended up having to tour the pit lane on 2 occasions, finished 11th again. So that's sort of been a bit of the unlucky number for him. You take those 3 bad results out, the only other, I guess, blots on the copybook all season, 4th at Calder Park Race 1, 7th at Surfers Paradise, which Race 2, which again was safety car affected, and then the others are the 3 11th place finishes. He's not been off the podium for the other races. So 5 bad rounds, or 5 bad races, or 5 off the podium races out of 21 starts. Goes to show you the level of consistency the guy's had all season long. And if he does manage to pull it off tonight, he'll definitely be a deserving champion.
Yeah, absolutely. His driving ability has been next level, and his performances have been very, very good this season. Very, very stellar performances as well. And unfortunately, has been marred by a few mistakes, but he's still ahead in the championship for now, barring some sort of DNF. But Stenberg looks like he may have this wrapped up if it continues.
Yep. And
Stancliffe's blown an engine.
Oh no, not again! Second time that car has blown an engine in the 2 race outings it's had, so it's not a good engine serial number on that one, and that is at the same spot. Let's go on board. Let's have a listen. Into the braking zone at 10. Yep. Went down to first gear.
When you buzz the engine up at 8,200 RPM, it's going to kill the engine straight away.
And just as we remarked, that's not the first time that car has blown an engine. It blew its engine at the Bathurst 500. Now, I'm just trying to remember, whose hands was that car in when it blew the engine? It was in Redmond's. So both drivers have sort of been at fault there with blowing the engine. And Tim's in the live chat, and I'm sure his heart will have sunk to the bottom of his bowels after seeing that car's engine go.
The first thought would have been, oh no, not again.
I don't think it's a case of an engine rebuild for that car. I think it's more an engine replacement. They're going to have to source another one and get it ready for its next outing, which 3rd time's a charm, as they say. Also having a look through the live chat comments, and Scotty Nolan, I guess coming back to our point a little bit earlier, saying where's he going in the driver silly season. I thought Scotty was going to be staying at Synergy Sim Racing, but I'm yet to hear otherwise. That's the team name that he's been synonymous with through most of the Automobilista Australia series. Doesn't matter whether it's TCAC, Super Series, everything over the course of time.
I think there's potential for Will Devonish and Scott Nolan to end up driving together. It would be a very, very good combo. The working relationship between the two would be fantastic. To be a fly on the wall in that would be very, very amusing.
Are we going to the Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber type arrangement with Red Bull,
I think
or
we're going more
worse?
a Mark Scaife and Russell Ingall type of arrangement.
Well, they were never in the same team, were they?
No. For good reason.
Yeah, for good reason. That's exactly right. So, with everything really settling down, the top 7 you can see there on the lead lap. RSM Latino is the last of those. And being harassed, I think that's by Brenton Foley, who's trying to get his lap back. Now, did I see another car in the lane? Yes, Urjit Mishra is in for another stop. So he could get home from here, just. And that moves Latino up to 6th, which means Mishra goes a lap down because the race leader is in the background. Now we cycle through, and this is really the only close battle on track now. So Turmo and the up-and-comer Nathan Higginson has had a bit of a slow lap that time around, 126.7. So he's had an off, and I think Turmo's gone flying past because Turmo's lap was a 22.8. So that was a change for position on that lap. I can actually hear, I could hear it on the, I think the traction control kicking in for Higginson. If we go to the onboard and have a listen to this car as it accelerates out of the corner. There it is. Brrr, that brrr noise you can hear. Traction control kicking in. So that traction control will probably be turned up as far as it allows, which I believe medium or actually no, high, because traction control is only available in low or high. So that'll be on the high setting, keeping that car pointing in the right direction. Now Hans has just gone to onto mute for a second here. I think he's just got a couple of things to look at. So we'll keep an eye on pit stop sequences. So Higginson in, and there's another car just ahead of him just leaving the lane. You can see a bit further up the order, and that's Lewis Wedding. So Wedding now goes a lap down. But this is what happens with the race leaders not yet to take service. They'll get those laps back. And Will Devonish has not been able to make those any real inroads. Oh, at a big rate of knots, Brendan Ross. I think Brendan Ross is going to be in a bit of trouble there. He has been a little bit hot getting in there. Let's go on board and let's have a listen. We'll go on with the T-cam on the roof and let's see. I get the impression that Brendan Ross is going to get a pit lane speeding penalty here. So committed, the marker. Oh yeah, I think Rossi might be in a little bit of trouble there. We'll just wait and see. So into the lane also comes RSM Latino. Nathan Higginson exits. But all eyes are going to be on Brendan Ross. Roadie coming in. Race leaders continue to pound around the circuit. Now there goes Turmo to retake position 4. Here comes Brendan Ross. Now what's going on with that car? He's playing with the limiter. I know what he's done. He knows he's got the penalty, I think. So no, he hasn't. So he's gotten away with one there. Must have been very, very fortunate to not get pit lane speeding penalty. That's extremely lucky. I thought for sure that he was a goner. And now he can get on with the battle of chasing Lewis Wedding. He's also going to have to get on with the battle of seeing just how far up the field he can get, because all the pit stops that are happening now, Lime Mitch in, Will Devonish expecting to be in this lap. Kurt Stenberg, race leader, is in and stopping well before the line. Now everybody stopping now can comfortably get home from here. And expect that Will Devonish will come in and just cover off here. No, decides to stay out, go another lap. So immediately when I say that he is going to come in and make a stop, he decides to make a mockery of me and gets going. And then behind him, Lewis Wedding goes through as well. He's still a lap down, of course, because Will has not taken service yet. But maybe we'll be in this lap here. Maybe he's hoping for a safety car to try and close the field up. But it'd come at a bad time for him if he did. So corrected race order will be Stenberg is just leaving the lane. It'll still be from Will Devonish from Lime Mitch. So that's going to be your top three with just Will to stop. And then when he does stop, it will unravel the rest of the field. We'll find out who's on the lead lap. And just where the remaining battles lie. Hans Brunswick still just temporarily away for the moment. Hoping he'll be back in a few seconds. Looks like he's back with us now. As the race leader makes what would be his final stop. And that will then cleanse the field. So they are getting a lap back as Lewis Wedding. And so too Brennan Ross gets his lap back. Orja Mishra gets his one back as well. So they are still on the lead lap.
Now, Kurt Stenberg is rapidly approaching the back of Will Devonish, and it's most likely that it's going to be... And he's just getting to the final corner now. He's exited the final corner, and it's going to be a swap of positions again.
Yeah, so that will be just a resumption of the race lead for Stenberg. No issues there. The lap traffic ahead won't hinder him too much. Or Latino off the road at turn 1. And that's a bit of a blessing.
Well, he still didn't hinder him.
No, it didn't hinder him. And it's a bit of a blessing for him, I guess, as well, that it made the life pretty easy for Stenny. So out of 18 starters, 6 retirements. So the last one was Stancliffe with an engine. Steve Warwick, we're just having a bit of a dive into the settings here. Actually, Scott Stancliffe was classed as suspension. I think that's wrong. Looks like it is an engine, so the game's not giving us the right information. Steve Warwick says it was also an engine. Likewise, Scott Nolan, engine. Rosella obviously DNF'd with game trouble. Brian Walsh, we're getting word, just retired to go and watch the Big Bash, and they're getting thrashed apparently, so that wasn't a smart move. And that's a symptom of stuff he's done during the year. I think he's gone to watch his beloved Bulldogs play, and several times he's done that. It hasn't worked out as well. And then the very first retirement was Glenn Miles all the way back at lap 3 with suspension damage resulting from an accident. Now, I did mention to Brian as well that we have got another moment in AMS Oz history coming from practice earlier tonight, where he just ran head-on straight into the pit lane entry point wall, which was very unusual. I was looking at I think it was Brendan Ross's failed engine in practice as he was rolling down the pit lane. The next thing I saw was a red wheel bouncing down the pit lane, wondering where it came from, and I thought, well, that's got to be from one of the Scuderia Alitalia cars, and sure enough it was.
Funny how that works, isn't it? And in real life it's actually happened. We've seen drivers hit the pit wall, the pit entry dividing wall. We've actually seen that at the Nürburgring 24 hour. There was a BMW M4 or something that went into that impaled the wall, so it seems. one of the weird and wacky facts about the Nürburgring 24 Hour, such as there's actually one driver who's raced at the Nürburgring 24 Hour. A lot of German drivers race under pseudonyms because they don't want their families to know. But there's one bloke, he chose his pseudonym as Bugs Bunny.
Oh, wow.
So Bugs Bunny, I believe he's done 4 or 5 Nürburgring 24 Hours. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually not a bad thing. I think there's a few people that moonlight as sort of those sorts of pseudonyms as well in this channel. I think who are some of the ones we've seen? We've seen Chris Pither. I believe
Klaus Ludwig.
Klaus Ludwig. We've seen Paul Morris.
Yeah, Paul Morris. Yeah.
In the Super 2
they all
days.
seem to be, all these people who are doing all these weird moonlighting pseudonym things, they all seem to be from the same team.
Yeah.
SimSport.
Well, they all seem to.
Strange.
That's right. Yeah, how strange. The other one that came around was Aldo Benedetti was one from last year, which we then saw in TCR again this year. So the Italian Stallion made another appearance.
I believe he's got the sniffles. He's back in Italy now, and he's got the sniffles again. So bad luck, Aldo. Get well soon, mate.
I heard he's got COVID-19.
Like 95% of Italy's population, it seems.
Pretty much. And the other one I think that came up recently, I think it was an ATCC one, was Petar Suraj.
Yeah, that was very humorous, Petar Suraj. But we speak about other pseudonyms. There was one bloke who particularly had a penchant for multiple personality disorder. We saw his pseudonyms: Ricky Slick, Kenzu Tomihana.
Kenzu Yomihara, yep.
Fastest lap of the race for Kurt Stenberg, 1:20.724. Yeah. Very good at this hour of the race, it seems. Almost on the hour as well.
Yep, we targeted it being about a 75-minute race. So we're sort of tracking towards that at the minute. Actually, on the topic of pseudonyms and Ricky Slick, I actually had a look. I've been doing a bit of historical work for AMS Oz and been looking through a lot of the results. There was actually a race where both Ricky Slick and Matt Williams raced. Now, for a lot of the time, we knew that Matt Williams was Ricky Slick under a different guise and the multi-personality disorder kicking in. But there was a race where Ricky Slick actually did race at the same time that Matt Williams raced, and then there was another person who was absent, and I was able to relate the two together. And the good thing about AMS results files, it actually tells you the Steam ID of who is using that pseudonym, so you can work out pretty quickly who's who. And I worked out, I believe it was Brendan Ross that decided he was going to use that moniker for a race just to try and throw a few people off.
Yeah, so basically it was in the days of FCR Motorsport. And,
correct.
Actually, speaking of people we haven't seen for a while, where's Greg Nangle? He usually rears his head about this time of the season. I believe he was entered for the AMS Oz Bathurst 500, but we haven't heard anything from him. So, Nangle, if you're out there, please come back. We love you.
I got the lowdown on what happened with the Greg Nangle, and it was Matt Schwass who were the car that actually was registered for the Bathurst 500 but didn't quite make it. And Matt Schwass was actually in the midst of moving house at the time, so he didn't actually have everything ready to go. And it was going to pair up with Greg, but it just didn't materialise. They didn't have enough time to practice, so subsequently they couldn't quite get themselves organised to do it. But thankfully we did have that other late entry, the Lachlan Burke, and Grant English was another driver who had come and raced with us in 2018. And it was good to see him pop up and run around and have a bit of a crack at the 500 as well. So it was good to see a good turnout for that event, despite the few challenges that we faced. Now, just looking at the point standings, plugging a few things in here. Of course, we've got our 6 non-finishers that we're putting in here, just so we know where everybody is. So, of course, Luke Rosella coming into tonight was position number 8 on the road. Now, with Lime Mitch position number 3 at the moment, that's actually enough for Lime Mitch to leapfrog Luke Rosella on the point standings by a country mile, actually. So the DNF for Luke Rosella is going to prove to be quite costly in terms of championship standings.
Yeah, very unlucky for Luke Rosell, especially a great season from the small part he was able to participate in it. Got a couple of race wins, and he definitely put himself on the map as someone who can drive. And as I've remarked many times, this kid is dynamite.
He certainly is. And having a look at his results too. So his first race in Barbagallo, 6th and 12th. So 6th is one that put him on the map. The 12th is the one where he started to have these game freeze issues. And the 2 wins he's had this year, got the win in the second race at Surfers Paradise, got the win on the streets of Hamilton, and he has had 5 other podiums since. So 3 second places, 2 third places, 2 wins, and his worst result has been a 12th place finish, and he has missed a couple of rounds in between. So he missed the opening 4 rounds, only having come across from ASC for round 5, and then didn't race in the Phillip Island 250. In actual fact, he was in commentary with us on that particular race weekend, and then didn't race Sandown, having exams to worry about. So prioritising, of course, the way that things need to be prioritised. But no, he's been a revelation this year. Like a number of drivers this year have sort of come out of the woodwork and really shown what they can do.
He actually qualified for a V8 Scops race at Spa. Wasn't a particularly deep field. I believe only 50 cars pre-qualified. And he managed to make it into the top split for V8 Scops, and he finished a very respectable 26th with some big battles in the field, and he got plenty of TV time as well.
Actually, speaking of Luke Rosella, we've just seen in the live chat there's a reason for why the pop-up may have come up. It turns out he had R-Factor and Photoshop on at the same time while racing. And I know there was a few drivers there were a few drivers that have been doing some livery painting, I believe, for Nathan Higginson's mod that he's putting together for the old Supercars mod. And they were doing a little bit of yakking about this before racing got underway tonight. I believe maybe that might be the cause. I think Lewis Wedding's fallen victim to that once or twice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. AMS is a very fickle game at times. It's the nature of the beast.
Well, with only 7 laps to run here, the order is just about settled. So Stenberg leading on screen here and, well, comfortably going to win the championship. Will Devonish, he did close the margin down a little bit through the stop sequence. It was out as far as 27 seconds at one point. He had that down to 21, and it's just gone back the other way. I think Will realises there's, settled for second. It's not the second time this year. It's not even the third time this year. I think it's more than that he's had to play second fiddle to anyone in a championship in AMS Oz this year. So he's comfortable second. He'll be able to make it home from here with no immediate threat. Lime Mitch. So Lime Mitch, this would be an equal best result for him on the season if he can finish in position 3. The other third place that he has on the books is from Surfers Paradise Race 1, which of course that was the race littered by a number of post-race penalties. It was the round littered by a number of post-race penalties, and that was handed to him after a number of top runners found themselves with post-race time penalties. Lewis Wedding goes a long way in position 4 on the road to leaping ahead of his teammate Pete Savage in the point standings. If we plug that into our radar as it stands right now, it's not enough to overhaul Steve Burko, so it will mean that he ends up 5th in the championship as it stands right now. Brennan Ross, 5th place for him. A quiet drive, started in position 5 and has just maintained throughout, despite being a bit higher earlier on as other drivers have stumbled and fallen over and made mistakes. He's just been nice and consistent. Ojit Mishra, still a really good result for him. Started position number 10 and will end up at this stage position 6. And he is the last man on the lead lap. And just you can see the gap to the race leader behind. I actually think with the lap times that he's doing, he can hold that, and it'll be a big feather in his cap to come to the end of 200 kilometres and be on the lead lap. First car 1 lap down is RSM Latino. Again, keeps chalking up these results. Good couple of top 10 finishes at Sandown. And this goes a long way to adding to those. Hoping to see him and a couple of the other drivers back next year. And also in Super 2. Termo's 8th place finish for him, sadly, is not going to be enough to overhaul Lewis Wedding. But an 8th place finish on the road will be enough to get him ahead of Pete Savage in the standings as well. So he will come up 1 spot from position 7 to position 6 overall. Nathan Higginson, again, he's only just sort of really started picking up the wheel for sim racing in AMS Oz over the last sort of like 2 months or so. Was mainly focused on doing the modding up until this point. It's good to see that he's getting his sim groove on, and on top of that, he's not a bad steerer either. Good in that mid-pack, battling away with people like Termo and Cam Rutledge and co. Speaking of Cam Rutledge, he's position number 10 and being harassed by Brenton Foley. So this is the only real close battle on the track at the moment. So Foley, the outgoing champion from last year, safe in position number 3 in the championship standings, but giving Cam Rutledge a very hard time. These two guys are the only cars 2 laps down, and in Rhodey, the last car classified at the moment, position 12, 3 laps down. Just coming back to this battle here, Hans, with Rutledge and Foley. A bit surprising to see Foley this many laps down.
Yeah, Foley's race has just gone from bad to worse, it seems, because he didn't get an ideal start. He qualified well down the, in the midfield in 9th, and now he's found himself back in 11th. He did get as high as 4th, but unfortunately not to be tonight for Foley. It's been a pretty torrid run as the defending champion for him, but nonetheless, he's gone down swinging. And he did get a race win earlier this season as well.
Yeah, he did. He's had a race win all the way back at second race of Barbagallo, which was race 7 out of the 22. So it was well over a third of the season ago. All the other results he's had since then, he's had some second place finishes. So the most recent one of those was Surfers Paradise, race 1. Also second place, Calder Park, race 2. Pukekohe, race 2. And then a litany of third place finishes. Back-to-back third place at Simmons Plains, another one, Barbagallo, race 1, Calder Park, race 1, and of course last round, Sandown, race 1. So he's had quite a few. Perennial podium get-up, but hasn't it all. And just as Rutledge made a mistake, Foley tried to stick his nose in there. Hasn't been the number of podiums that he wanted this year. He's had quite a hard time, I guess, just keeping pace with the leading front runners, and even he will have admitted very early on in this year that he wasn't going to be able to go with the likes of Kurt and Will and fight for the title. He was just sort of going to have to go as best as he could and try and be third on the road, or try and really challenge for a team's championship this year.
Yeah, it's just showing how much the field has progressed in the space of 1 season.
Yeah, progressed an awful amount. Even I was surprised the amount of progress that a number of drivers made, even in Super 2. Oh, Rhodey around at the back. Just Rhodey looks like he's had a moment off of the last corner, and I think he's done that all by himself. He's going to get going again. But and is he going to come into the pit lane? No, he just gets out of the way of the traffic a long way here. So we just saw that unfolding in the back of shot. This will probably be the last replay we get for the year. And overcommitted in the braking zone, and then tried to gas it up on the dirty stuff. And right around in front of Cam Rutledge and Brenton Foley. Penultimate lap for car number 47. So a couple of corners to go, and then one more tour, and it will be done and dusted for 2020. Hans, it's been a hell of a year. We have had a lot of different things to talk about this year in Supercars. Sadly, this race has become a little bit of a null and void type of issue this time around. It's settled down.
Sort of become a bit of a footnote in the season.
It has. And look, to be fair to, I guess, Kurt Stenberg in this one, these are the races that he had always said that he liked the longer format. Go back to Adelaide. He dominated. You go back to other races of long distance. Sydney Motorsport Park dominated. Hamilton, he was in the front running thing and just got usurped by Luke Rosella. You know, Bahrain dominated tonight. Townsville dominated. Phillip Island, he was right in the thick of it as well. So the longer format has been a number of times
just punted Rutledge,
where he shows his class. So that's off screen. So that will then be Foley. I guess we'll make sure Cam stays in the top 10 for that one.
and he has redress, so that's okay.
Yep, so that's all good. Well, we won't go back and take a look at that on the replay. We will give the champion-elect the honour of coming to the line to take his first AMS Oz championship. Hard to imagine that all the way back in 2018, he was such a dominant force. Unfortunately, missed out on the championship with the way that was structured, but not in 2020. Kurt Stenberg salutes in race 22, 300 points and an exclamation point on this year's AMS Oz Supercars Championship.
Very well-deserved victory and a very well-deserved championship for Kurt Stenberg. Well done.
Sure.
Very good season.
Here comes the man in second place on the road and second place in the championship. The men who started off the front row in positions 1 and 2, finished 1 and 2 on the road and finish 1 and 2 in the championship. And let's not discount this one for Lime Mitch. He is one of the upcomers this year, someone who has improved enormously throughout the course of the season, and he's thoroughly deserving of another podium spot, and he enjoyed that one, I'm sure. Wedding across the line fourth, only 2 cars to get home to finish on the lead lap, and that's these 2 guys in shot here. There's Brendan Ross, and then behind him, Urjit Mishra. So it will be all over and done with for Supercars in 2020. We're just doing the final points tallies as these drivers get across the line. And what's that? What's Rossi doing? I was about to say, hopefully he hasn't run out of fuel and then Mishra's going to come along and snaffle one, but no. All good. And everybody is across the line.
So funny how this race, it was all going to come down to the wire, but it turned out to be a bit of a blowout. But what a great season we've had. Steve, do you agree?
I agree. And look, before we go, I guess, too much into things as well, we round out the top 10 here. So RSM Latino, as we said, another top 10 finish for him in only 3 starts, 3 top 10s. He'd be pretty pleased with that. Termo, Nathan Higginson and Cam Rutledge rounded out the top 10. And of course, Foley was on the cusp of getting into the top 10 there, but just made that late mistake and ended up getting into the back of Cam Rutledge. And that meant that he, I guess, did the gentlemanly thing, I guess we can call it, didn't he? He ended up leaving him the gap that he needed to get home ahead. And I think that's probably what's one of the good things about Brenton Foley. He's not a dirty racer by any stretch of the imagination. He races hard, he races fair, and, you know, did the right thing at the end of the day. And look, it didn't affect his championship one iota. He's still 3rd place at the end of the day.
Yeah, pretty solid season. I did say he had a bit of a torrid run with the car number 1 on his door, but I'd say that was perhaps compared to last season. But look, he did manage to get a few good performances in, and he also did finish 3rd in the championship. So well done to him as well.
Yeah, he did exceptionally well this year. I guess it was, as I said, he always thought that it was going to be a very difficult year for him to really challenge for, back-to-back titles. And I guess his hypothesis was proven to be correct at the end of the day. It certainly was a difficult thing for him to do. Just waiting to see if we can get everybody filtering in for a little bit of a chinwag. I know that a couple of the other, not so much just the podium sitters, but the other drivers will be in very, very shortly. But Hans, we might actually start with the man who finished in third place while we wait for them all to come in Lime Mitch.
So, Mitch McGovern, he's actually finished third tonight. Very good job. But how about the lightning start, Mitch? Very, very stellar start off the line.
Yeah, it was a pretty good start. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty good start. Got off the line all right. But I think into turn one, just a bit later on the brakes, managed to get up the inside.
It was a pretty big send from all the way back, and you did have a big dip there, so very, very good to see that. But pretty solid to have a third place finish, and I believe first podium in a while for you in the Supercar series.
Yeah, I think it's the first podium in the while, or since Gold Coast, so last round. But it was a good race. I think one of my most consistent races so far. So it's showing signs of improvement.
And I'm led to believe, or Nether and I are led to believe, that you'll be on the move next season. You'll be joining a race team. Do you want to comment on that at this stage, or will we have to wait until January 1st, 2021?
I think we'll have to wait for now.
Great job, Mitch. Third place tonight.
Thank you.
Second place went to Will Devonish. Will, bit of a troubled start, but you had a big dip and got the bit between the teeth and dragged yourself back up to second. So very good job there. But, you've really cemented second in the championship now.
Yeah, I guess the start of the race was a bit frustrating, clipping Rosella. Must have been the lightest of taps, but it was enough to turn him around, so didn't want to take advantage of that. I know he lost a lot of spots for that, so it doesn't really make up for it. But yeah, redressed that, and head down, bum up for the rest of the race, and yeah, pretty happy with the last two sectors of the race tonight.
Also, on the topic of next season as well, we believe there is going to be a new driver joining CRE Electrical Team next year. Are you willing to comment on that?
I think you know more than I do then. We haven't talked much about...
Very diplomatic response.
We haven't actually talked about much about next year. There've been little hints of maybe changing manufacturer, but nothing in concrete so far. But yeah, this year I've been really happy with the team. I wanted to put a shout out to Greg Tara for stepping in at Gold Coast. Aaron Thomas at the start of the year did some great driving. Recently Ozrob taking over that second CRE car. He did a fantastic job, and throughout the season also Liam Spencer. Really happy with his performance. And then the other two in the team, Termo. I think he's the only other driver besides Kurt that started every race and finished every race, regardless of how bad the car was. There was even one race this year he did half a race with broken suspension, but he just kept going. So he's a real trooper. And also hats off to Cam for all the work he's put in this year. He's on average taken a second off his lap times from last year. He delayed a shoulder surgery so he could do the Bathurst, and he's come back early after shoulder surgery and still pumping out a top 10 result tonight. So he's really happy with that, and we're all happy with his results for that. I also want to thank Lewis for all the work he's done with the liveries this year. I think he's probably designed about half the cars on the field. Big thanks to Boak and Foley for designing this series and making it such a good series this year. And I think hands down it's been the best racing we've had in AMS Oz Supercars. And also I really want to thank you guys, and especially Stephen, for all the work he's put in this year in the Combox. It's been absolutely phenomenal.
What a great way to end the season. Here, Will, I couldn't have said it better myself. Well done on second place.
Thank you.
Kurt Stenberg race win tonight and also really dominated the championship this season and dominated the race tonight. Very, very well done, Kurt.
Thanks, mate. We needed to come out tonight and make a statement to put a final full stop on everything, and I think we did that.
I mean, it couldn't have been done any better. But Nether and I were remarking before that you really favour the longer race format. Is that true? And how does that work to your strengths?
I don't know. I did find that across the course of the season, the longer races did seem to favour me. I don't know. I've always preferred longer races. I've never been much of a hot lapper, even though I've claimed a number of poles in this series and whatnot. I've never really considered myself that kind of a driver, or I've always considered myself a more consistent, conservative approach when it comes to sim racing. So, yeah, I guess that's why they favour me. And plus, you can recover if you do make an error and you can come back from it. Where quite often in a sprint race, as what happened to me last round, you make a mistake and it haunts you for basically the rest of the night with the way the grids are in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the counterpoint to that is that if you have a shock of a race in the longer race format, well, that's it, day done. But it seems that the longer race formats, it's sort of worked in your favour, Kurt, because you've had some very, very good performances with the feature races.
Yeah, I've tried to. As I say, it's that there's 300 points on the line in those races, so you've got to try and maximise the result. But as I say, I still like the sprint race formats. I still think that they're pretty good. It's good to mix it up. You don't want to have the same formats all the time. So I don't know. I like both, but the longer ones definitely seem to favour me. But yeah, it was pretty good out there tonight from where I was sitting.
And a very well done in across the whole races of the championship this year. Nether, what's the stat on race wins? 11 race wins, is it?
12. So 12
race wins.
12,
so very,
12
very
from 12 from 22. There was the run of 7, then another little block of 3, and then the last 2 wins for him were Sydney Motorsport Park, and then which was round 10, and then the last one was tonight. So 12 race wins out of 22. Just totting up the other podiums now. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 second places in there as well. So well and truly, the consistency extremely high, and definitely a deserving champion out of all of that. When you look at all those stats on paper and you say, well, out of 17 rounds, you're on the podium. Sorry, out of 22 races, you're on the podium 17 times. You can't argue with that.
No, you can't really, can you? I must admit, there's been some disappointing races from my own point of view in there. Last round and the round before spring to mind, and also Calder Park springs to mind as ones that were disappointing. But if you normally championships are about consistency, and if you're consistently at the front, you can afford to have a bad day, and that's what's really rewarded me across this championship, I guess, is that even on a bad day, I've still managed to finish the race and collect something and get something out of it to be able to keep building the gap and then get to tonight and only really have to finish to get home, but wanted to put on a show and do the best that I possibly could still.
Yeah, spot on. And look, you're absolutely right. I think Hans and I remarked earlier in the night that those 3 particular bad races that you were commenting on, you finished 11th in all 3 of those races, which is a mind-boggling statistic that you finished the same position in all 3. But you're right, if you throw away those particular rounds and, they very easily end up as DNFs or something like that, it completely changes the outcome of the championship. So by, we encourage people to keep going so you at least salvage something, and at the end of the day, very well it could have been the deciding factor. I mean, until we do the math, we obviously don't know to what extent, but you're absolutely right. You circulate, you pick up points, and, the rest of the series, I guess, speaks for itself.
Exactly right, mate. I've always been a believer that you do your best to try and salvage whatever you can, if it's not your day, and that's how you end up being successful across the course of a season, as opposed to just race wins or ending up in the fence like other people that I know. So if you're consistent and you try your best to finish, even if it's been an absolute shocker, you get rewarded at the end of the day normally.
Yeah, you sure do. We'll leave that one there, mate. Congratulations again. First AMS Oz title, like a number of other drivers this year. Good to see you get one under your belt, and a very deserving champion. We'll send you down to have a chat to the other boys downstairs while we wrap up some formalities. There are a couple of things to go through. So what we will do here is we'll bring up. We've got a point standing that we haven't got it in the game on the stream, but we can run you through the top 10 in the championship, just so everyone's aware. So as it stands right now, subject to any penalties that need to be issued post-race, so Kurt Stenberg clear by 216 points at the end of the day from Will Devenish, and then Brenton Foley in third. So those top three, of course, were safe coming into tonight. The real movement is behind. So Steve Burko's fourth place was safe and sound. There's been a little bit of change after that. So Pete Savage, by virtue of not turning up tonight, he's lost out. He's been jumped by two other drivers. He's been jumped by Lewis Wedding, who moves to fifth, Turmo, who moved up to sixth, and that demoted Savage back to seventh overall. Lime Mitch, he leapfrogged both Brendan Ross and Cam Rutledge, and ahead of Luke Rosella, into position 8 overall on the season. Rossi had finished in 9th, and Cam Rutledge, so Will Devenish will be pleased to hear this one, Cam Rutledge has finished just inside the top 10, 6 points ahead of Luke Rosella. So that DNF for Luke Rosella was extremely costly for him tonight in terms of a top 10 finish. And then getting into the top 12, which is the ones we've been displaying all season long, Benjamin Rhodes actually managed to get into the top 10. The closest battle, actually, at the end of it all, was the battle over 9th, 10th and 11th. It was Brendan Ross, 1,779 points, Cam Rutledge, 1,734, and Luke Rosella, 1,728. They were the closest finishing positions that ended up being disputed right until the checkered flag fell at the end of that race. So as much as we've talked about champions for tonight, we do need to give a little bit of a nod to what's gone on this year in AMS Oz. So we're going to do that with our Wall of Champions segment that we've just got here. So we've got a little something that we prepared for everything that went on this year in AMS Oz. And we start off with the Track Day Challenge, which sadly wasn't streamed, but it was put together by Brendan Ross, and Turmo was the victor in that one from Steve Bolger and Lime Mitchell. Everybody ran the radicals in that one, so it was a level playing field. Dwayne Davies broke the streak of front-wheel drive championship victories for Brenton Foley. It was 4 consecutive until TCR came along for Season 2, and D2 got it done at the final round of the season at Sandown ahead of Brenton Foley and myself in that one. Over at TCAC, we can't forget about our friends over there. Brenton Hobson and Scott Nolan took out a Synergy Sim Racing 1-2 in the all-wheel drive series with the Mitsubishi Lancers. And Scott Nolan finished ahead of Turmo, who was in the Subaru. Likewise, it was a Synergy Sim Racing 1-2 in the Group A cars. Hobson and Nolan in the VL Commodores, ahead of Will Devenish's Mercedes-Benz. And that one went down to the last round of the season as well, just 5 points in it at the end of the day. What about this one? The GT3 World Series delivered. Steve Bolger was on the podium on just about every race, and he won the championship in dramatic fashion, the Monza fuel mileage miracle, as we called it, to take his very first AMS Oz title in the Lamborghini ahead of Will and Foley. Likewise in Sprint Series, the closest finish we've ever had to a championship, going down to the last race. Pete Savage getting a maiden AMS Oz victory and championship by 1 point over Will Devenish and Lime Mitch, who's starting to show his credentials at that point in time with third overall in those standings. Luke Rosella, the man that Hans calls the kid is dynamite, he finally got the job done with a round to spare, showing his credentials in the Porsche Boxer Cup, with Lime Mitch again showing that he is no slouch in any car that he drives, and Will Devenish third place in that one as well. On to the Supercars fraternity, so Super 2. Earlier this year, Steve Burko and Lime Mitch, a Holden Racing Team 1 and 2, with myself managing to hang on for third at the end of the day ahead of Termo, Holden Racing Team 1 and 2, Tickford Racing, Ford Falcon in position number 3. All three actually just in that shot there. The Bathurst 500, what a special event this was. Rosella and Eli Mitch, the Volvo dealer team, Volvo S60 getting home ahead of Steve Burkow and Hans Brunswick in the Commodore, and Zach Ross and John McDonald as well. And a heartbreak in that one with McMillan and Stenberg falling at the final hurdle with engine failure, but not tonight for Stenberg. There's the final point standings there for the top three. Stenberg comfortably 216 points clear of Will Devonish and Brent Foley, and he set the tone for that all the way back at Adelaide and has never looked back since. So that is a little bit of a nod to your champions in Automobilista Australia this year. All of the titles that were there this year, with the if you take out the Bathurst 500, Hans, which was the special event, of course, there were 9 championships that were up for grabs this year, and they were divided between 8 different championship winners. What a season and what a year we've had.
Yeah, really fantastic season of racing in AMSLs, and it continues with the AMSL Summer Series. So I think there's a couple of drivers that have dropped out of that. So if there's cars available, make sure you get involved with that because it's good fun on Friday nights. But a truly, truly fantastic season of racing. Over 9 championships. And number 9, what a number. Number 9. Revolution 9 from the Beatles.
It is Revolution 9. 9 championships and 1 special event this year. And you were right about one thing, Hans. There is some Super 2 stuff coming up, so we get to that right now. So, guys, for Super 2 tomorrow night, don't forget, it's a double round. Rounds 2 and 3, Simmons Plains and Phillip Island. Action starts at 7:30 Eastern Time tomorrow night. And then again, the following week, Barbagallo and Winton, rounds 4 and 5. So that'll round out our year for 2020, and of course Super 2 Summer Series carries over into 2021. Over the Christmas and New Year break, guys, don't despair if you're a bit devoid of things sim racing. We do have some social and fun events that we'll just be putting on just at random for guys that are hanging around. There's no obligation to attend. Get in there and just have a bit of fun. Let off some steam and enjoy yourselves, and also enjoy the time this year you have away from the SimSeat too. And something that'll be released in coming days, guys, is our AMSL's end of year survey. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you liked about this year, what you didn't like, who you thought was, the most improved driver, who'd you like battling with the most, and most importantly, what you want to see next year. We've got to start building our calendar for next year and what we want to put out, and that is going to be largely dictated by what you all want to do. So we're happy to facilitate it, but we want to know what we need to put up. So keep an eye out for that in coming days. There'll be links in the Discord channels. There'll also be a link on Facebook for you to follow. It doesn't matter whether you're a driver, whether you're someone who watches the live streams as an avid viewer, or whether you're just someone that pays attention to the group and sees what goes on. Please give us some feedback. We value what you have to say because it's been a big year for us, probably our biggest year to date. We've got to work out what we do next year. What I'll do now is I'll very quickly pass over to Brenton Foley for a final word. I know he's had quite a lot of input into the Supercars season this year and, of course, into AMS Oz. And, mate, well, the floor is yours, just like last year.
I'll try and keep it short and sweet. First and foremost, even though my name is on the series admin list for this series, I need to thank all of the AMS Oz admin group because I would not have been able to do it without them, especially with some rounds having impartial adjudicators for penalties and getting mods out, and like Will for running servers, Lewis, as we already mentioned, painted half the field, and Nether, if anyone doesn't know, he's also one of our impartial adjudicators and does a lot of the professional write-ups and all that sort of stuff that you see in the steward's room, is all proofed by him, and a lot of that I couldn't do without. Phil, even though he did stop racing partway through the season, everyone will notice by looking in the Discord, he did not just leave the series at all. Even though he didn't race, he still did the mod packs, got everything out, helped out with all the penalties, and worked on everything, even though he wasn't taking part. So massive thank you to him. I already mentioned Will and Nether for the servers. I want to thank Kurt and Will. Obviously, were in an absolute league of their own racing this year. It was impressive to watch. Well done to both of them. I know Kurt doesn't like using the number one. I'm pretty sure, but I'd gladly hand over the choice to him for using the number one. And CRE on the team's championship. And last but definitely not least, the commentator crew of Hans and Nether for giving up their time and commentating all the races for us to watch back. Just a reminder, they do not get paid for this, and the stuff that we see on YouTube is in immaculate quality. It's insane the work that they do, especially Nether with all the overlays and everything behind the scenes. A lot of AMS Oz stuff would not run without him. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your kind words, mate. And Hans, I guess final word from me to you, and I guess comments from you on this one is, mate, thank you for being a great broadcast partner this year. Every time we share a box, regardless whether it's here, whether it's in real life, I don't know where I'd be without you. Thank you.
It's all a big love in tonight, but no, thank you everyone at AMS Oz for trusting me with a microphone, which is always pretty dangerous. But thank you, Steve, for inviting me back. I've been coming back, and I haven't said something that has justified you kicking me out forever yet. So that's good.
Fantastic, mate. No, we'll be happy to have you back next year as well, guys. For all of you watching the live stream at home, please have a Merry Christmas and a very safe and happy New Year. Stay safe. We will beat this COVID-19 virus. We'll all get back to normal. But until next time, please drive safely. See you in 2021. Bye for now.